I've long feared this day, my friends, a day when we'd have to seriously consider the possibility that Phanes is And look, I pray everything I'm about to say is wrong, that this is on the level of the Farina is Istaroth theory, and above all else, I pray that someone can point out some sort of fallacy, some sort of inconsistency in everything I'm about to say. Call me a dumb fuck, please. That's all I can hope, my friends. With that said, I believe it's time we start to seriously consider the possibility that there may be a greater than not chance that the Primordial One, a progenitor god hailing from beyond the stars, is dead. My friends, do you know what happens to a character in a story when they aren't the protagonist but they become too strong? We get the likes of Madara, we get the likes of Sukuna. You know what this often leads to? Interesting endings for said character, because at the end of the day, they aren't the protagonist and they're too strong. Madara got caught lacking by a nigga who no way he's allowed within 10 feet of a fucking elementary school. Looks like he eats kids. Sukuna fucking knows what they're gonna do to him, bros. But you see what I'm getting at. And thus we turn to Phanes, the Winged One, the Sovereign of Sovereigns, by far the most powerful entity in teyvat when it mattered. So powerful, its may no longer exist, at least not in the form that we know. What do I mean? When I was making the last video, I reread something I've read a lot of times at this point, and it's Nervalet's story on visions. But let's do something fun. Let's play a game, huh? I'll read this right now, and let's see if you can spot the horrifying sentence that spurred this sudden realization within me. Quote, severely wounded in the Great War of Vengeance, the usurper had their functions ruined and could no longer use their absolute authority to suppress the original order of this world. To continue to subdue and control the resentments and loathing of the world, the usurper and one who came after created the Gnosis together. So it came to be that an order was made to be upheld, and thus did humans come to only possess these 7 remembrances. And all fragments of the Primordial were driven to devour each other. And let me just say, for those going, oh, it's the first sentence. Oh, fuck no, nigga. You know, it's your goddamn mind. Hell, Phanes would never die of such wounds. No, it's actually the last sentence that's piqued my interest. So it came to be that an order was made to be upheld, and thus did humans come to only possess these 7 remembrances, and all fragments of the Primordial were driven to devour each other. Now, the lattermost part is most certainly speaking of the Archon War, but why is it referring to the war like that? Fragments of the Primordial. What does that mean? A fun fact, in CN, the Primordial One is actually the original one. And in CN, the latter half of this paragraph is better translated as such. Quote, all fragments from the original were driven to devour each other. Now, it might be that this is all just semantics, but there's something strange about this period of history within teyvat. We know there was a time before gods walked the earth, and it was the unified civilization. It was also during this time that humanity knew of Phanes and the Shades. Hell, Phanes made a pact with humanity. It's had a plan for humanity, and humanity knew it well enough to write it in a book. But then something happened. The second who came happened. It arrived unto the scene, reignited a long forgotten war, and despite losing, managed to do the impossible. The second who came severely wounded the Primordial One. In fact, Phanes was so severely wounded, it could no longer wield its absolute authority to suppress the sovereign. So, did it turn to creating the Gnosis to supplement its power so as to have teyvat run itself while it's left, maybe to heal up? However, here's the odd part. It's also around this time gods started appearing all over teyvat. Where did they come from, and why now? Why after the war with the second who came? Why right in the run-up to the Archon War do they all seemingly start to appear? Does no one find it odd we don't question how or why gods are able to use elemental powers without a vision, yet we greatly question why Samaturals are able to? The only beings who should be able to do this are Descenders, because they don't belong to this world. I wonder then, if it's possible that gods are directly derived from the Primordial One itself in some way, be it literally or its powers, and Nervalet's story on Visions is being literal when it stated that fragments of the Primordial were driven to devour each other. If Phanes could no longer rely on one person wielding absolute authority, could it be that it had to create an entire race of superhumans so as to spread out said authority to avoid consolidation of its power? This is just me rambling and hoping none of this dumb shit is true and that I'm fucking cooking nothing and need to get the fuck out the kitchen. But could it be possible? After Phanes lost the ability to wield its absolute authority, something else needed to wield it. We need to keep down the original order of this world, and thus that's how the god race came to be? Or is it possible that the god race are amalgamations of the absolute authority Phanes once wielded but could no longer, and in turn, it was then that the sovereign's own elemental authorities were seized to give to the gods who would win the war? This is all fucking confusing. Let's consider some things. Are the gods legitimately just Phanes broken up into pieces? No, that wouldn't be possible with our current understanding of the lore. Gods like the Moon Sisters and Nabu Malikad's existences should have coincided with the unified civilization, given Celes should have been the divine envoys of said era. And given she was the goddess of flowers, this could suggest one of two possibilities. A, gods have in fact existed prior to the arrival of the second who came, or B, she somehow only became a god after the war with the second who came. This possibility would open up the idea that as opposed to being fragments of Phanes itself, gods are fragments of Phanes' powers. However, not all gods came about during this period. People like Barbados and Focalor are extremely young compared to these ancient gods, and to boot, they weren't even born as gods. Focalor was an Oceanid who became a human, then an Archon by fucking selection, I guess. We still don't know. Well, Venti was a wind spirit who became a god, then an Archon through the people's faith. So obviously they cannot be direct fragments of the Primordial in the sense that they came from Phanes itself. So again, what if gods are amalgamations of the Primordial one's absolute authority? This could explain how gods can take whatever form they want, and it's because their form is just pure elemental energy. Here's the thing about this though. Shouldn't Phanes' absolute authority be intertwined with the Gnosis, given they serve the same purpose as Phanes' own authority, which was to suppress the original order of this world? But for the sake of argument, let's just assume this could be a possibility. The biggest inconsistency with this, however, would then be Guizhong and Rex Lapis. You see, from the moment these two descended, they were said to have control over their respective elements. Guizhong had dominion over dust, and Rex Lapis had dominion over Geo. And given Rex Lapis' existence coincided with the Celes race existence, quote, it is said that Rex Lapis was still young, the sun was a chariot that raced across the earth. When the three sisters of the night sky were martyred in a calamity, the solar chariots fell into a deep gorge. Then this means they both were able to wield their elements before the war with the second who came, which thus would have been before Phanes' functions relating to its absolute authority were ruined. All this aside, the biggest piece of circumstantial evidence that lends any credence to this idea that something happened to Phanes to create the god race is that Phanes also seemingly went missing around this time. The last bits of recorded information in lore regarding what Phanes has done include sending down the divine nails and then creating the Gnosis, but then after that, nothing. It's as if it's seemingly vanished. Now again, this doesn't necessarily mean it's dead. I mean, hell, the source for all of this is Nervalet's, but then again, his voice lines still refer to the usurper as if it's still alive.
My final destiny is to judge the usurper king in the heavens above. Since you hail from beyond the stars, I invite you to be my witness as I judge this upended world. This realm dismantled was of the formidable Father himself, but what now reigns here is a cluster of filthy feathers.
And so does a pep.
Although my hatred for that usurper from beyond the heavens still stirs deep within me.
So surely, this is all wrong, guys. Surely everything I've just said is wrong. Right?